I mean,
Yeah.
can you believe they waited till the deadline before they got together to meet and talk
Gee,
about it?
what's new? Well, I guess my question is, how would Bush too have handled this whole thing?
Well, my advice would have been that the president get in his limousine and go to Capitol Hill and meet and talk and work with members of Congress until they solve the problem, as opposed to getting on an airport plane and flying around the country campaigning against the cuts. I think it's actually, we're witnessing a failure of presidential leadership. It's the only the chief executive can set the vision, lead people toward the goal, bring people together. You can either be unifying or you can be dividing. And unfortunately, I think President Obama has still been in campaign mode rather than governing mode. I hope that, first of all, we're talking about $85 billion in a $3.5 trillion budget. Most families know when you have to cut back a little, you don't put it in the house payment or not feed your children. You cut the lower priority items. The problem with these cuts is they're across the board. And so there's got to be an accommodation where we can make cuts, but cuts that are the lower priority items relative to high priority items like the second control.
How crazy was it?
Well, you know what? I was going to say,
All right, this is the deal. We're going to cut all of this. If we don't come up with a deal, that then would force us to come up with a deal. So we'll have one. We don't have a deal.
Well, it was President Obama's team's idea, is my understanding, and the idea was that it was so, unacceptable. It would be so unacceptable to everyone that it would never happen. Unfortunately, it did not force agreement, and again, I think that's a failure of leadership. It's been it's been months now that they've had time to be solving this problem, and they haven't done that. And I think you have to understand. To achieve consensus in a closely divided country, both sides have to be able to take home something to their constituents. Our country elected a Democratic president and a Republican Congress, and both of those people have to be able to say to their constituency, we delivered for you. And so the president was able to get a big tax increase through at the end of the year as part of the fiscal cliff negotiations. Now, I think Republicans in Congress feel they have to go home to their constituents with some real cuts.
Karen, let's switch gears for just a second. Can you get us behind the ropes? You were in the room for all the big decisions with President Bush. How far did you go? I mean, I'm sure you thought you were right. How far did you go when it came to those big decisions to help the president make his decisions?
Well, my role, I think, was to make sure that he had, first of all, had all the information he needed to make the decision. So often you were in a room discussing big issues about which you didn't know a whole lot. I mean, I'm not an expert in nuclear science, for example. I remember a big meeting about the science of storing nuclear waste. But what you want to make sure is that he's got a balanced, wholesome, a wide and balanced, different points of view from different people. And he's thought through all the potential ramifications. Part of my job was to make sure that preparing to brief the president, that people who were going to see him understood his principles and how he would approach a decision, a major decision, and then make sure he had a full range of options, and that he felt comfortable. And if he didn't feel comfortable, making sure he had whatever information he needed to feel comfortable making a decision.
President Bush always had this vision of compassionate conservatism. We heard so much about that during his time in office. Has the Republican Party sort of lost that vision?
Well, I think in the aftermath of the 2012 election, I'm starting to see some Republican voices say maybe President Bush was onto something. He believed in the notion of compassionate conservatism was that a conservative philosophy was optimistic and hopeful. It's not negative. That we believe by limiting government in a proper way, by championing the opportunity for the private sector to grow and create jobs, by recognizing that immigrants come to our country because they want a better life for themselves and their families, and that they're willing to work hard and contribute to our country, that is a hopeful philosophy, and that was the whole notion behind compassionate conservatism. And I think it's important, yes, that our party, a recent poll came out just this week that shows the Pew poll, people think of our party as harsh and unwelcoming, and I think that really cost us in the last election.
Did you always call him President Bush?
I did. I still do.
What was his nickname for you? He had a nickname for everybody.
He did. Mine was Prophet, which is a play on my maiden name of Parfit. And when I did something he really liked, he would call me the High Prophet. So I really liked that.
That wasn't a Bushism, that was an on-purpose nickname?
That's right.
Outstanding.
He always had a nickname for everybody.
He did.
He did. All right, Kieran Hughes, thanks for your time this morning. Welcome to Grand Rapids. You've been here before, but nice to have
I
you
have.
back.
It's great to be back, and I want to say this is a fantastic program. I commend Michigan State University and the business community for supporting this because we really need this type of training. You know, our politics is only as good as the people who go into it.
Look
So
at
it's
a lot
a
of our
great program.
a lot of our politicians in the state right now have